Welcome to the Brandon Market Podcast, the show for short-term rental owners who want to turn their listings into legacies. I'm your host, Laurie Henry, owner and co-host of multiple properties and founder of Brandon Market, where we help Airbnb hosts and short-term rental investors build intentional brands, smart marketing systems, and guest experiences that actually move the needle. Each week, I share practical strategies, real-life stories, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you attract the right guests, increase bookings, and run your rental like a business, so you too can be the best in your brand and your market. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Brandon Market Podcast. I'm your host, Laurie Henry, and today I have a very special guest. She happens to be my aunt, Miss Laurie Henry. She is based out of California, so she's on the opposite coast of me, but she is one of my best friends that I look up to. We are going to be talking today all about real estate investing because she has been doing real estate investments for over 30 years now. She has the vast majority of her portfolio in long-term rentals, single-family homes, a couple of commercial properties here and there. But most recently, we went on a couple trips to Montana together so that we could look at potential short-term rental properties. So we're going to talk a little bit about the transition over, not totally from long-term to short-term, but what the differences are between those two. And then we are going to talk a little bit about our time in Montana and how many properties we've seen and the experience we had in Big Sky Country. So first, Laurie, my first question for you is tell me about the start of your long-term real estate investing. Like, how did you get into it and what led you there?
It was a dream of my ex-husband's that we got into long-term rentals. We started out with our primary residence, and we used that to jumpstart we bought our first 3 rental properties, and then we were kind of like loaned out. We couldn't buy anything else. So we started doing flips. We did flips for, I'd say about 7 or 8 years. We built up some money, and we used that to invest in other real estate when the market took a dump in 2008. In the particular area where we invested a lot of money in rentals was in an area that really dove down in 2008. So we came out here and we were buying properties for $50,000 to $75,000.
That's crazy.
It just took off. It was a lot of work, and it's been a learning process. There were a lot of things like foreclosures and short sales. We put tons of offers out there, and not all of them stuck, but the ones that did, we built a good business with that.
Did you feel like now that you've taken like the crash back in '08 and where you are now, do you feel like you can kind of anticipate trends now?
Oh, I don't know that I could do that, but I think that real estate itself is cyclical like any other industry. I think that it will dive again, just a matter of when, and it takes all the economic input that comes into it, and that's what causes the market to dive. And I've seen it go up and down a few times in my lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think that I have been into the real estate world long enough to see that full cycle yet, because I've only been in for like 5 or 6 years at this point. But I do feel like sometimes I can't see the forest for the trees because I look at listings all day, every day, and I can see trends that are like micro trends that might be happening right now, but I haven't seen it yet over a big span of time.
You will. It'll happen.
So I know that you guys have mostly the long-term single-family homes, and now you still manage those. How many of those are you managing at any given time right now?
I have 63 properties out here in North Highlands, California, and I have a commercial building out here. Then I have a multi-unit in Lexington, Kentucky. Then I have a couple of properties in Virginia that I manage.
Yeah, so close to 70. That's crazy. And I know that you have some crazy stories. Do you care to share one of your like just out of this world stories of previous renters? I'll return it with one of my craziest short-term rental stories. How about that?
Okay, so the very worst story I can tell, we had tenants that moved out of a property and we did an eviction on them, and they just left the property in it was, I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff in my 30 years, but this was the worst. There was human feces on the floor, dog feces on the floor. They left an urn that had their mother's ashes in it. And I'm like, I can't even dispose of this. They have to come pick this up. You can't just throw that stuff away. Why would you leave your mother's ashes in the house? That was the worst. That's probably the worst thing I ever had to do.
They must not have known. Certainly, they couldn't have known they left their mother's ashes.
It's amazing to me how disrespectful people are of property when they have an opportunity to live in a home instead of an apartment, and they just trash the place. It's the disrespect for the property is kind of disheartening sometimes. But then again, I also have tenants who take better care of their property than I think I do sometimes. So
it goes both ways. I remember the first time that Caleb and I moved we were like, when we first got married, we moved to Quantico. We rented a house because we were only going to be there for a year. The people who had lived there prior to us were the owners, and they had like a 2-year-old son. And I remember when we moved out, I was like scrubbing the 2-year-old son's like crayon marks off the room wall that like we never went into. We just used it as like a storage area because we were only going to be there for a year. We didn't unpack everything. And I'm like, I bet nobody else does this. But then on the flip side of things, when we rented out our house in Sneads Ferry, when we moved back up to Quantico the second time, I don't remember if I called you crying or not, but like I was absolutely devastated. Like I didn't know what to do. We had hired a property management company, and like 6 months in, we were getting calls from the HOA, and we were like living 5 hours away. So we didn't go by and like drive by it or anything. It wasn't like we were local. And the HOA was like, excuse me, Miss Haney, your grass is above the back fence. We're going to need you to handle that. And I'm like, what? The fence is like 4 feet tall. Miss Haney, we're going to need you to get the broken down Suburban off the blocks off the front lawn. What? Oh, gosh. So that's how our first and only experience of long-term renters went. And that's why we converted over to doing short-term rentals from here on out, because how much damage could they do in a week? We also have the answer to that question. We know it can be a lot. Look, I guess I gave you my bad like long-term rental story. I'll give you my bad short-term rental story. It was during COVID times, and everything kind of shut down, but it was in that touch and go period of we didn't know how shut down it was or how long it was going to be or what that meant for all of the short-term rentals on Airbnb. And so we were able to like click a box that said we were doing like extra safety protocols and cleaning protocols and stuff. So in order to stay like live on the site. And so we went ahead and did that. And we informed our cleaner of like, these are the extra protocols that we're taking, all that stuff. And then we're very new. So we opened up in November of 2019. Of course, COVID hit like March of 2020. So we were still very fresh, very green. And we still allowed one night stays. Okay. Let's just put all of the factors together of this like perfect storm that occurred. Live right next to a military base, lots of young enlisted Marines. COVID, so they're on lockdown on base. They can still get off sometimes, but they're certainly not just hop skipping over to the barracks. And a one-night stay from a new host. Yeah, you bet your ass. They decided to rent our place for one night, have a rager of a party with 40 plus Marines. Our hardwood floors were so sticky that the cleaners walked in and their shoes almost came off. It was so sticky. But hey, at least they moved the couch to set up their beer pong table. I'll give them that. It was crazy.
I think you have to experience some of that in order to know what to look out for in the future. It's a learning process.
100%. I've learned a lot over the last 6 years of hosting. I now know the kind of just red flags that start to come up beforehand. And every single time, if I ever like push that gut instinct down and I just let it ride, I can always guarantee that I'm going to regret it later. So recently we have been out to Montana twice within the last 6 weeks or so. And that is because you have decided that you would like to purchase a short-term rental of some sort in Montana, and a little bit of backstory. So before we jump into the Montana story, I want to give her a shout out because she was the one that purchased our Kentucky property, and she is the one that believed in that wedding venue dream. She was also riding passenger seat with us, going through all of the zoning issues and neighbor issues and all of the things that we experienced in Kentucky. Again, something you have to experience in order to know what it's like and learn in the future. So she does know that that one, of course, runs as a short-term rental, has been running as a short-term rental for 4 years, but that she's pretty hands-off in Kentucky and lets me do my thing. But this time she was like, I want to make sure that this property in Montana is a lifestyle asset. It's something that I can enjoy. And so she wanted to get my brain in there to look at it through a short-term rental lens, but also her eyes in there to make sure that it was going to do what she wanted to do within her own life and for her kids and her grandkids and all the things. First, tell me, what drew you to Montana initially?
I've always wanted to go to Montana and visit it and see what it was like. After the first visit up there is a sense of peace and relaxation when you look into the views and the mountains and the landscape and the lake, and in the area that we were particularly were looking, there's just a peace, a sense of, for me, a sense of relaxation, a sense of calmness that makes me feel comfortable. And it's just beautiful. There's a sense of beauty there that I don't know that you can explain it unless you see it.
Yeah, they call it Big Sky for a reason. I remember when I landed in Kalispell, and at that point, I was just meeting you and your son, Rosser, and Genevieve out there. So like her granddaughter was with us. I was by myself. I didn't have the kids. It's very rare that I'm traveling by myself and no extra bags and all the things. So I was able to kind of slow down and just take a look outside the window on the airplane and just watch. And I remember once we landed and I went out, like the Kalispell airport is like a whole wall of glass. And you could see just as soon as you got off the airplane, it was just 360-degree views surrounded by like my most favorite color palette of like blues was the sky and purple were the mountains and green were the evergreen trees. And it's just absolutely breathtaking. And then you walk out and it's so quiet. It's like, yeah, I'm at an airport, but like for some reason, I just feel like everything around me is calm.
Absolutely.
Was there a reason that you decided specifically like the Flathead Lake south of Glacier National Park area? I don't actually remember how we got there or if it was me that led us there, to be honest.
Well, you found that property there, and then I did a little bit of research and had some input from my friends Mark and Nancy. They have some family up there. They came back and said, "Hey, you got to be in the Flathead Lake area," because I didn't know what area of Montana to go look at. It is a big state, and there are different landscapes and there are different areas that are famous for different things. They said Lakeside. They're going to be doing some redevelopment of Lakeside in that area. And so when we showed up and the house that we were focused on, our Heartbreaker house was, about 20 minutes from Lakeside. So that was right in the area that I wanted to be in. And once we got there and you drive around a little bit, you look at the views and opportunities there. That's how I figured out where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Oh, so let's dive into the Heartbreaker house. So whenever Laurie says anything about like perhaps a new market or whenever I have a new market that I'm looking at, which is exactly what I've done with Kentucky for the last, like the 2 years that we were searching for a property there. Like anytime we're going to a new place, I just set up a search on my phone for realtor.com with all of our specs in it. How many beds, baths, whether we want new construction, price point, budget, all the things, right? So I just put in that search in my phone and lo and behold, this like house pops up. And it was a little bit outside of the budget when it first popped up, but I sent it to Laurie anyway. Because I was like, look at these views. Oh my gosh. It was like, there were like full wall of windows. It was just like a 180 view of the lake, the mountains, this like privately owned island across the way. And it had this little like, we go vacationing in Outer Banks every year. And they always have those like crow's nests up at the top so that you can see above all the other houses to see the beach. Well, it was like a little Montana version of a crow's nest that you could just see everything around it. And so like, for whatever reason, this house stole my heart. And so I kind of like watched it and it dropped. Oh, it dropped 100K. Oh, it dropped 200K. I'm like, oh my God, it's in budget now. And so I sent it to her again because I didn't get the warm and fuzzies from you the first time I sent it to you, probably because it was out of budget. You were like, let's go to Montana and look at it. And I'm like, what? Okay, I'll book my ticket for Thursday. And that's how it happened. And so we fly out.
This is the first list of houses that you sent me in Montana.
Oh my! So she's very old school. And if you're if you're listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, she just showed me a handwritten, wide ruled, single leaf sheet of paper with the addresses of, let's say, the 15 houses probably. I'm sure she always kind of like double, like hesitates a little bit before she tells me she wants to look at something because she knows her phone's about to blow up. Her handwritten sheet of all of the specs of the houses that I sent her. And we went through, I don't think I ran air DNA analyses on all of those. We kind of narrowed it down a little bit more before we did that deep dive. But we narrowed it down to, well, of course, what we're calling now the Heartbreaker house. Spoiler alert by the name. You probably know that we did not get that one. And then we saw 3 others on that trip, right?
Yeah, 3 or 4 other. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were only out there for 24 hours. It was basically one day that we were looking at houses. Oh gosh, now I'm going to have to go back into my memories since we've seen so many after that. One was a fix and flip. We didn't love that one. One was the Heartbreaker house, which we'll tell you more about that story in a second. And then one was the house that you went back and looked at the second time, but I don't remember what the fourth one was.
I don't either.
Oh gosh. Oh, one had just a really funky layout and not that great of a view of the lake. So we were like, it's that one up on Boone or something, right in Summers. And so, immediately 2 of them were completely out. One was a little bit higher out of budget, but had a really great layout and really great revenue potential because once we finalized the set list, I guess, the viewing list for the day, I ran the AirDNA analysis and B&B calc analysis to try and see exactly what we could get for an average daily rate and what the occupancy rate would be, because that is a very seasonal market in terms of like what's going to be attracting people there at specific times a year. In the summer, the lake has everything popping. It's very alive between the months of the end of May, like Memorial Day to Labor Day. But outside of that, we were a little bit too far out from Whitefish, the ski slopes, to like really pull for that for like consistent winter revenue. There was another like smaller mountain. So it was like that was a little bit nearer. So we could kind of pull a little bit for the winter, but we weren't going to be looking at like 100% occupancy all year. So anyway, we had to figure out the occupancy and ADR and what the gross revenue would most likely end up being based off of comps in the area. But when we went to the Heartbreaker house, there's a lot of backstory to that house. And I don't feel like we have to share it all, but it was touch and go at first, whether or not we were even going to be able to get in and see it. Thankfully, we did get in and see it. But as soon as we walked in, backstory, it was foreclosed on or getting ready to be foreclosed on. And when we walked in, Laurie, describe the smell that hit you as soon as you walked in.
I always tell people when you walk into a house, you get a smell, and it's a different feel of whether this is really an option or not. You have to go beyond that in order to see the vision of what the house could be. You have to be able to see the potential in the house. There was a lot of potential in that house, but the smell was, we know what it was.
We do know what it was. So this, like I said, it was getting ready to be foreclosed on. We went and saw it in May, and it had been vacant since November. So 7 months, but they had not cleaned out anything from when they left in November, and there had not been power on since they left in November. Again, let's like take all of the factors of this. Vacant since November, no power since November, everything's left there. The freezer and refrigerators were not cleaned out. Oh my God. It was awful. It smelled the entire As soon as you didn't even have to walk in through the door. It was like you could taste the smell. But then as soon as you got, past the smell-ish, you walked through and you saw this gorgeous view. And then you walked downstairs and it was another gorgeous view from bedrooms, from living areas, from game rooms, from the upstairs, like the crow's nest thing. And so I was so grateful that Laurie had an open mind on this one, because it was pretty bad looking, bad off. She agreed to put in an offer on it, despite the fact that it was going to take quite a bit of work. But even though we put an offer in on it, unfortunately, with those extenuating circumstances of it being foreclosed, that like we were trying to save it from going to auction is what it ultimately was. But unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. In my true online sleuthing fashion, as soon as we left that house, because that was the last one we saw that day, I deep dove into all the things, the property records, everything that was public record that I could find about this house, the owners of the house, all of the things. We found out that there were just so many liens taken out. There were liens taken out, construction liens and home loans and second home mortgages and business debt that had tied up into it. And it was like so many layers of complicated, convoluted banking records, all the things that like we even had the conversation. Do we come out? First of all, I didn't even know how an auction worked. They literally said you have to go to the county steps and make a bid on it. And I'm like, this really feels like the Wild West. I feel like I'm in like some antiquated movie. Is that a thing that happens like everywhere?
I don't know. I haven't ever delved into that realm, and it would have been a new experience for me for sure.
Yeah, I mean that does sound like something that might happen in Kentucky. You have to come to the courthouse to buy a property on your horse.
Yeah, you should probably be packing at the same time.
Right, exactly. But that's what they said. They were like, if you want to come back at the 30th this month, then that's when we're having the county auction at the steps. And we even had the conversation, do we come back out and are we there for the in person for the county auction? Because you had to be there in person for it. We had the conversation, but it was really just like, even if we were to purchase the house for the first mortgage that was on it, which was around $500,000, it had over $2 million in liens. And there was no way of us knowing whether or not we were going to inherit those liens on that house or not. And so it was just, that's why we call it the heartbreak house. It could have been great, but it just didn't work out. Look, y'all know the tagline for this podcast is turning listings into legacies. We start a short-term rental business for one of two reasons. We either really love real estate or we really love hospitality. But what if I told you that you could do both and do them both well? Lodgify is how I do that. I can run an operationally sound and therefore profitable business while also loving all my guests and leaving some margin for some unreasonable hospitality. Lodgify can help you create your own direct booking site, manage your reservations and guest messages, automate the back end of your business, and stop depending entirely on other platforms that you don't control. Lodgify helps you build your business, something sustainable, something that allows you to love on your guests, and something that helps you turn your listing into a legacy. Use my code BMPOD20 for a special discount until the end of July. That's BMPOD20 for 20% off all yearly Lodgify plans. Cheers, y'all.
I will tell you, one of the things I learned from that experience was the ability to run the title report prior to making an offer. I mean, you have to pay for it, but in that situation, it was well worth anything. The information that we got from that title report was very important.
Yeah, I guess I didn't even think about that, like kind of nitty gritty part of the process. We were like hunting down the title company to try and figure out how to know what we were getting ourselves into. Because that's a scary situation when you think you bought something for 1/5 of what you actually purchased it for.
And then you have to put more money into it after that.
Right. And so on our second voyage to Montana, we actually drove by that house, the Heartbreak House, just to see, because we had seen that it had sold at auction and we knew how much it had sold for, which was lower than the amount we offered by, a couple $100,000. There were people there. They were airing it out.
They put up a gate to keep us out.
They did put up a gate to keep somebody out. Probably all the people that have liens on it.
Or previous owners or.
Yeah, again, that one had a lot of, it would have been absolutely amazing probably in a year to 18 months, but that probably would have caused us a lot of anxiety from opposite ends of the country, not knowing. Of course, you could put like the exterior cameras up and stuff, but not knowing like what exactly was going on when other people are local there. So anyway, maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe we dodged a bullet. We'll never know. Then we went out there the second time and we saw, oh gosh, 2, 4, 5 properties. 5 properties over the course of a week the second time. I guess you guys saw 6. But anyways, we'll get to it. One of the things that we learned about the Montana market, specifically the Flathead Lake market, was that it can drop off in occupancy the further south on the lake that you go. And so correlationally, the lower you go on the lake, it seemed like prices were getting a little bit more approachable, or feasible for us. And so we were like, we don't want to totally put out of the market the second half of the bottom half of the lake. We still want to include that in our search, even though we are acknowledging that occupancy might be lower year round, because it is, part of this is a lifestyle asset that she can use with her family and stuff. We decided, okay, we're going to open up the search a little bit the second time we go out to the bottom half of the lake. The first day we spent mostly at the south end of the lake, which is an area called Polson. And so we saw 2 houses in Polson that day. The first one was an amazing view. An amazing view. You liked that one, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was the one on Sunrise, the White House.
The landscaping.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there were 2 that we looked at that the landscaping we thought was absolutely gorgeous for somebody that was living there full time, but we were a little bit skeptical of how well we would be able to upkeep it from, trusting others to upkeep it. Because that one specifically had like a beautiful rose garden area in the back. So there wasn't like a ton of just like open yard space. It was like overlooking the lake. So the backyard was pretty slanted and sloped, but they had this like beautiful landscaped area with the rose garden in the front and the back. But that one had a beautiful view, but it wasn't like you didn't walk in and you were immediately like, oh, this is the spot. And then the second one, by the end of the walkthrough, I think Laurie and I were both on the same page that wasn't it. There wasn't like any specific reason why it wasn't it. It just wasn't it. It was probably, well, no. The road leading to it was like kind of dicey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a little bit more off the beaten path. So like first day, especially coming off the Heartbreak House, it felt a little bit like of a letdown, Second day was, I'm going to let you tell the story about the church because I'm still a little bitter about it.
We got a call from the real estate agent and he said, because Alex had asked about it and had asked to get into it, and he just didn't push hard and fast enough. But he called us and said, well, we can get you in, but we can only get you in this limited amount of time frame. And I was still at our Airbnb, and Alex had gone out with her family to enjoy the Montana experience, and she couldn't make it back in time. So I took my friends that were camping there with us. Mark and Nancy went with me, and we went down and took a look at it. And it was in between bookings because it's already an Airbnb, but it's a church. It used to be a church.
It was the only one that was already an Airbnb too, right?
Yeah, I think so. You walk in, it's like had 3 bedrooms, 2 baths on the main level, plus the living area. It was beautiful, nice kitchen, already running as an Airbnb. It did not have the view. There was a way to make it have a view, but it did not have the view. And downstairs, there were already framed out rooms for more space, for adding more rooms and stuff and more potential down there. And then there was a loft area for the kids or whatever. It was a small lot. It was blocked from the lake. So you had all of that potential right there. Plus, you already had a history of it running as an Airbnb for the last 4 years.
And I think I might have talked over you by accident when you said it was a renovated church, which was super cool. So it had the steeple, and we were trying to figure out So one of her things that she wants to, her non-negotiables, is that she has to have a place to sip her coffee with Mark. You better send this episode to Mark when it comes out so he knows that I remembered. And we were trying to figure out a way to engineer the bell tower for them to have their coffee at the top of the bell tower in the church.
There was talk of a ladder, and I'm an older person, and that just probably wasn't going to happen.
I said spiral staircase.
Spiral staircase would have been a better option. Absolutely. Better than a ladder. For a 62-year-old woman climbing up a ladder, get her coffee. Probably would have spilled my coffee, but
I'm going to have to have a dumbwaiter for the coffee. Just reel it up to you.
It was a good option though. It was a good option, and we put an offer in on it.
We did put an offer in on it, and we put an offer in on it for asking price, and still did not get it. So we are 0 for 2 in Montana. 0 for 2. They did ask us to sign a backup offer, to which both of us prideful women said, screw that.
When you're done playing with your first offer, come back and ask us. But our offer will probably be different then.
Today's price is not tomorrow's price, my friends. Yeah, we were excited about that one. And when she said there was kind of a way to manufacture the view, the bell tower is obviously an option for your morning coffee, if we could figure out a way for that to actually structurally and architecturally happen. But the more feasible way would be to add a deck on the back, and that would have been a pretty easy addition. And so that was going to be on our short list of things.
There was a secret door.
Oh, tell them about the secret door.
There was a door in between the 2 floors that had been covered up inside and outside, but it allowed you to go out in between those 2 floors. And that's where you could have put the deck out back, and it would have looked right over the lake.
I'm not holding my breath, but I haven't completely given up hope on that one. I still check it on realtor.com every day. As of right now, it's still contingent, but they went with a contingent offer over us. We were not contingent.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Anyway.
Against a real estate agent's advice.
Against their real estate agent's advice. Yeah, you're right. Well, and another thing, as we were talking about earlier, you live and you learn all the lessons that you kind of take from each either showing or project or chapter of your life. One of the main things that I took from Kentucky was the zoning and making sure that you have the permits that you need to run certain things that you want to run at your property. So if there was, we got to a serious point of actually making an offer, we did contact the county to determine what the zoning for that specific parcel was, what the requirements are, because both of the properties that we put in offers on actually ended up being in the same county, even though they were in different parts of the lake. But the second one was actually in town. She had mentioned it's a block from the downtown restaurants and stuff. And so we were okay, let's make sure, even though we know the county's regulations, let's make sure that there's not a specific city regulation that's going to prohibit us, even though it was already running as such. Let's just make the extra phone call. It'll take 3 minutes. And we found out that it is feasible to have a permit, but it currently does not. So we did not intend to cause any issues, but we were trying to do our own due diligence and might have messed somebody up in the process of that. But that I want to know, before we make this investment, we have to know what we're going to be able to do legally on the property, because we found out in Kentucky very quickly that you can't just do whatever you want. So even in places you think you should. We put in an offer, it didn't get accepted. We had seen 2 others later that week, but one of which had still kind of that same landscaping issue, but we did like it. It was an absolutely gorgeous property, had a gorgeous view, loved the exterior deck that overlooked the lake. The last and final one was actually outside of our normal area that we had been going. It was a little bit more a little bit farther north of the other areas that we had looked, but it could be big potential if it was something that fit the vision that we wanted. It didn't quite, because there was a main house that had, I can't even remember, 3 or 4 bedrooms, but it was really choppy. There was another spiral staircase was pretty common in the houses that we ended up seeing. Then there was a barn dominium that had 2 apartments, one upstairs, one downstairs. And again, it just felt choppy and not like it flowed very well, but the view of that one was gorgeous. I feel like you paused on the view for a second on that one, and I was like, no, this ain't it. This ain't it. And then after I left, you guys took an adventure, her son and daughter-in-law, back to another house that we had seen the first go around. And I kind of purposefully skipped over that so that you could tell the story of that house and why it's so attractive to us now.
The biggest thing about this house that we're looking at now, is that it crosses a lot of boxes for me. It has the view upstairs and downstairs. It has the ability to do an owner lock off so that you can have a completely separate unit downstairs with your own garage, your own entrance, your own space. And upstairs has potential to have additional rooms than what it has right now. It has a couple of loft areas that can be closed off to made into rooms or not. It just has a lot of potential, and it would be easy to get up and going as an Airbnb. We wanted to go see it. We thought there was an open house on Saturday. It was on Sunday. So we contacted our real estate agent, and he said, I can't take you, but the listing agent can meet you over there. So we met the listing agent over there, and my son really liked it the first time we walked through it. The wow factor about this place is when you walk in the front door, you're looking out the back window at the view. There's just a wow factor there that was the biggest thing for me. The second thing was the owner lock off downstairs. I could go anytime I want and still make money upstairs. So
she and Mark have her
we have
their
our
coffee spot.
That was what I first said when I walked into that house and saw it. I said, look, Mark and I could have coffee here.
Oh, I love that one too. And it's interesting to like, it's kind of like a puzzle to me, trying to figure out how all of the pieces work, both like your priorities and what you want in a property versus the income potential that it has. Because that one too, this is something we had kind of forgotten the first time or the second time you guys looked at it, but we had found out that they actually ended up like long-term renting the downstairs, the part that you're calling like the owner's quarters. And that was a potential another like revenue stream if we needed to offset expenses in the off season. There's a hospital nearby. We could do a midterm rental. It would already be furnished. So there was like, that felt like there was a lot more flexibility. And again, the proven income potential that we didn't need to take a gamble on.
So there's lots of pluses to that house. Lots of pluses. And when you're not just Alex saw it, but my son and my daughter-in-law saw it, and they liked it too.
There's like, it's a very fine balance of the like making a decision based off of data, gut instinct, and emotion. Like bringing it all together, I feel like is the sweet spot. And sometimes you just can't, the personality of the house or the emotion behind it, having all of the people that are like, or most of the people that are important to you, give it like a thumbs up and be excited about it. Like you just can't replace that with numbers sometimes. The other part to that is that I went back and looked at my spreadsheet because I had updated it the second time we went, but I hadn't looked at the houses from the first one, mostly because I was avoiding the heartbreak house. I didn't want to see those numbers again. But I went back and looked at the numbers for this house that they went and looked at the second time around. And it actually was the highest of all the properties that we looked at. I was like, oh shit, how did I overlook this? So like, maybe the data, the gut instinct, and the emotion are all pointing to the same thing. And the reason we didn't get the heartbreak house is because we're supposed to be over here.
It's in a good spot. To me, it seems like it's in a good location because it's kind of like in between Lakeside and Kalispell, and Big Fork is over here. So you've got a lot of, and Glacier Park is over here. So you've got a lot of things right there to do. And it's in a unique spot because it's not in Lakeside, it's not in Kalispell, where you come off of the street and you go across the street and you're literally at the lake.
And that view that you can see from both the upstairs patio and the downstairs patio, it's hard to replace. Hard to replace. So you mentioned one lesson that you had learned already in the due diligence process is to, if you have a sticky situation, running a title report can be really helpful and insightful in making a decision. If you had to say that there was one other lesson that you learned throughout our trips to Montana, what would it be?
Don't narrow yourself, but also keep in mind what your goals are. What do you want to achieve out of this? And I think that's why we keep going back to that Summers house.
I agree. And that's what I like when I was talking about kind of balancing what your use of the house is. Like, yes, of course, we want it to offset expenses and pay its expenses, but we're not looking for it to necessarily print money for us. It's not just a money-making investment. It's going to make money just by nature of being a short-term rental, but it also has to serve your lifestyle and the purpose that you want for it. And if that's going to be fulfilled, then that's going to be fulfilled, you know?
It has to be that sweet spot where they all come together.
Absolutely. Well, you guys will have to follow along to see if we end up putting in an offer on the I'm calling it a Midsummer's Night Dream. I don't know what it is. I name every house. We've got the Heartbreaker house, the foreclosed one that we didn't get. I didn't tell you guys about the church's name, but the church's name I called High Water because are you going to go to hell or high water? We haven't gotten the church.
So another potential name for the Summers house. There's an eagle's nest when you're looking out of the house. There's an eagle's nest right off to the left-hand side there, and you can see the eagles coming back and forth to their nest and stuff. So eagle's nest has been another name that has been thrown out there.
Oh, I don't remember seeing the eagle's nest. I probably was looking mostly at the house and not all the way out at the view when I was there.
The real estate agent
cool.
pointed it out to us when we were there.
She's a good salesman. You guys had sucker written right across your forehead, and she read it loud and clear. No, I'm kidding.
She told us, she pointed out the positives that she knew that we would appreciate. That's what a salesperson does.
Right. She read the room. And
she read the room.
She didn't even know that Rosser had already been sold. Well, you guys are going to have to follow along to see if we end up putting in an offer on the Summers house. And if so, how we are going to design it, what the name is going to be, the brand is going to be, the furnishings are going to be. It's going to be great because we're kind of locked onto this Montana market anyway. So even if it's not this one, we'll find one eventually. So stay tuned, guys. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brandon Market Podcast. Cheers until next week. You just completed another episode of the Brandon Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.